Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures. I am High Lord Tamerlane, and this is the base core box, one of the first inaugural Malifaux 3rd edition crew sets. Now obviously if you've seen this channel, I have tons and tons of Malifaux, more than I really know what to do with, because I don't really use them to play Malifaux, because I am just overwhelmed with all the stuff, just like I was with the War Machine. I am a lazy wargamer when it comes down to it. The simpler the system, the better. However, I really like my steampunk Weird West turn-of-the-century type model. So I had to get this, regardless of whether they'll get used in Malifaux or not. I had to have them. So first off, we have Cornelius Basse, which obviously is based on Marshall Bass Reeves, who you probably have seen on this channel if you've seen my Wild West Exodus videos, because that's another version of the same character that we've got there. We've got Jonathon Reichhardt, we've got Bernadette Basse, and we've got the Frontiersmen down here as well. So obviously a very cool, very nicely themed Weird West steampunk looking group. So if you're into games like Shadows of Brimstone, Dead Man's Hand, any of those kind of gunfighting 19th century cowboy type games, I think you can get a lot of bang for your buck with a set like this. Also, Malifaux. You can play Malifaux with it. With 3rd edition supposed to be streamlined a bit, I'm more than willing to give it a shot. I got a couple of the new starters, and hopefully I can convince some local friends into playing it with me. I'm going to stop talking for a moment. Let's pop this open and let's see what the actual models look like. So, here we have all of the sprues that come with the kit. One thing I didn't mention was, and I probably should point out on the box here, if you know your Malifaux faction symbols, here we always have the guild, but we have this new one right here, which is the Frontier. The Frontier is a new faction, which I probably shouldn't mention just because. Another thing that bears mentioning are the bases. Now, Malifaux had what I always liked for bases, if I can find one, because I know I always have something laying around. Here we go. This was the traditional Malifaux base. Little shallow, but very nice lip around it. You had a spot for a magnet. But here are the new bases. You know, I've seen people mention that online. Wait, what? I thought these were the new ones. Yeah, they are the new ones. Okay. I guess the 40mm base, which is for Reichhardt or whatever our big executioner friend is, they pretty much are about the same. So obviously, I don't remember if the 40mm had the weird symbol on there, but obviously they have a slot if you want to cut it. I'm not sure. I guess that's for pinning it. Not big enough spot for a magnet. Now, these are the new 30mm bases, what most Malifaux figures are based on. It is a little bit deeper recessed than the older ones. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. But they also lost the spot for the magnet on the bottom. That might be a deal breaker for some of you. They did get the weird logo on there. What's interesting is these are different than the ones that they've been making for the other side, because those obviously are branded for the other side, and they're a little bit different in shape as well. So that's the basis. Let's talk about the models. So here we have a big old cape. I'm assuming, looking at the box, that would be Reichhardt's. I'm assuming actually this whole sprue here is his. He's got that kind of executioner glove here. This looks like Bernadette. Yeah, Bernadette Basse. You can see the knife in her hand there. This doesn't look too complicated. I've heard some moaning and groaning online about how the models are a bit more static this time. I had a problem with a lot of the mid-2nd edition models were a little bit too dynamic, so I don't know. I do like the fact that they're not completely leg. They're still pretty leggy models, but they're not as leggy as some of those early 1.5 models when they first made the switch over to plastic. Those were pretty bad. This looks like, I don't know, one of the Frontiersmen. This must be our Cornelius. You can see the shotgun over the shoulder there, or whatever kind of gun he's supposed to be wielding. And then these must be the Frontiersmen too. Quite a bit of parts. Nothing too... Oh, no, I was going to say nothing too ridiculous for Malifaux, but nope, here's part of the belt. That's going to be a fun one. More ammo. I'm not putting individual limbs on yet, or fingers, or toes, or ears, or beards, so I can't really complain. Everything looks nicely cast. That's always a plus. I gotta say, I am looking forward to building these. So I'm going to grab some clippers, and we're going to get them built, and we'll see how they look compared to some of the older Malifaux models we already got laying around. Alright, we're starting with Bernadette here. You have the head, torso, arms, hands, and legs. Pretty simple. Let's get her put together. And here we have the finished model. I know I need to do a little bit of cleanup here. One thing I noticed is she looks a lot more mature in the model version than she does with the artwork. I thought she looked kind of childish in the artwork. Reminds me more of Ironsides here. A couple of things to be careful of, especially when you cut out the knife from the sprue. There was a lot of very fragile looking parts connected there, so be careful with that. Obviously I need to clean her up. But next up, why don't we hit Jonathon? Here we have all the parts for Jonathon Reichardt. He's probably the most parts heavy of the entire crew. We have the 2 legs, which has the torso and the head already on it, unlike the mask covering the face. You have the rest of his torso with the chains and things. You've got his big executioner claw. I don't know if that's replaced his actual hand. Obviously I need to clean it up still. He's got his other arm here. You've got the rest of his jacket, and then you have his propellant tanks, and then the end caps that go on those tanks. Be careful cutting these off, because again, they have the chance to snap if you're not careful. But I need to clean him up, and then let's put him together. Alright, we've got Mr. Reichardt all finished here. I believe he is the model that's supposed to go on the 40mm base that's included with the crew box, because obviously he is the largest. Now, I didn't actually finish gluing him, and that's basically because I wanted to be able to really get to the back, but he just has a nice, easy slot in right here to attach the jacket to the rest of his body. Details that'll seem nice. I was a little thrown off on how to connect the tubes, but as far as I can tell, he's got this one that plugs into the top, and then the other one plugs directly into his gauntlet there. So it wasn't too problematic. As the case is with just about every single Wyrd miniature that they have in plastic, you always want to really get the parts cleaned up nice and well, and always dry fit before you actually glue anything, because sometimes these parts just look like they don't want to go together, but after a little bit of cleaning up, they do cooperate. So that is Jonathon, and next up we have our crew boss himself, Mr. Bass, because it's all about the bass. I'm trying to figure out what this is. Shoulder pad? Probably. So he is in a close second place with Jonathon in terms of having the most parts. You have the top half of the torso, bottom half of the torso, individual feet with big old shin guards. I'm assuming, yeah, I don't know what this is. Oh, this is his hand grabbing the belt buckle. A little bit of flash on there. A random pile of bullets. His big gun over his shoulder. 2 pieces to make the rest of his duster. And finally, the man himself, if we can get him in focus, but naturally, you can see a cigar sticking out of his mouth. I don't know if he actually has any eyes molded on there. I can't really tell, even looking at it under better lighting than this. I don't think so, which if you don't like painting eyes like I do, you're in luck. So, we're going to get him all put together, even though I don't have everything on the camera right there. There you go. There's all the parts. We're going to get him put together, and we'll see how he looks, and then it's on to the Frontiersman. And here we have Cornelius Basse all finished up. A couple of things worth noting. You can't really put him together without getting the whole jacket built. This bottom part attaches to the legs, which then attach, well, I guess if you wanted to keep the legs and the bottom half separate, you could, but then you got the arm kind of connecting everything together. And as I suspected, I'm trying to get his face in focus there. You really can't see any eyes because they don't really seem to exist. There's a lot of detail going on with this model. It's just a really sharp model, sharp enough that I didn't do a nice job of getting his arm on there. Other than the coat and the legs, you might want to make sure the hand kind of squeezes in underneath the jacket here, which is part of the torso. So, otherwise pretty simple. He is a good size model. Obviously doesn't have a base yet, but with Bernadette next to him, if I can get her to stand up without a base. And where is Jonathon? Whee, you can see here as I slowly build them. All right, next up are the Frontiersmen. I'm not going to go piece by piece, but I am just going to remind you. So there are a lot of parts here. We have 3 of them, and we're just going to go ahead and get them built. I guess we'll start with this one. I think this looks like the Native American guy. Where's the head? There is no head. Right here. I have no idea. So we have the Native American, the female, and the Irishman looking dude. So let's get them built. And we've got the first of our Frontiersmen all done here. For some reason, I don't know why this guy, even though they have him painted like he's of Irish descent with his bright red hair on the cover artwork, reminds me of Teddy Roosevelt. I have no idea why. Kind of a classic gunfighter pose. Be careful with this arm. There's actually a little plug that's supposed to slot into the chest, and I cut that off in my eagerness to clean everything up. But thankfully it all kind of fits together. This part right here threw me for a loop. It's actually the cloak extending off, and I keep bending it as well, so be careful with that. Construction wasn't too hard. There's a teeny tiny slot on the back of his leg here to attach the saber, so be careful with that as well. And the real fun part were the fringes on his legs here were actually separate pieces that had to be glued in, and you can see the mold lines on the legs need to be dealt with still, but that's beside the point. Kind of fun. There's little throwing knives all around the fringes on both the front and the back of each leg, even though that's not in focus. So other than the fringe and the delicate little parts here, he wasn't too complex, and everything kind of was intuitive in how to put it together, so that was nice. Moving on, though, we're going to do the next of the Frontiersmen, and that will be the female model. Alright, with our second Frontiersman, or Frontierswoman, I should say, we get into the real fun Malifaux parts. What I expect to see from Malifaux parts. So we've got the torso itself, we've got the 2 legs, the head, the other arm with a gun, and then we have the fun stuff, her individual braids that are going to have to get attached to her head. I'm sorry, nope, those are the fringe. Never mind, that's for her pants. There is this ridiculously tiny tomahawk that is super, super thin, that just holding it barely is going to bend it, so be real careful with that thing. And then these throwing knives, which I don't know where they go, but as well are so delicate that just cutting them off the sprue, they wanted to start falling apart. They are super, super thin. The rest of the model seems pretty sturdy and easy to put together, so I don't know. Cross your fingers and wish me luck. I'm going to attempt to put her together. And here, despite being a bit of a mess of glue, is our second of the Frontiersman unit. She was a headache, and obviously she's in need of some cleanup. Getting that tomahawk, I'm guessing that's where it goes. It broke on me as I tried to glue it. I'd actually forgotten there's a teeny tiny little bit of an ammo belt. That's not in focus there, but right there, bing, that had to get glued in. So do that before you attach the arm and the extra holster that is on her back. Otherwise, the knives were pretty easy to spot on the renders from the CG stuff on the box. They go right there. And despite all those teeny tiny little bits, she actually went together pretty smoothly. The teeny bits, not so much. But I'm liking her sculpt here. And finally we have our Native American Frontiersman left. And then I've got the whole crew finished, so let's get him done. So here is our third and final Frontiersman, and hopefully to be the easiest. Body, jacket, arms, head, a little bit of ammo, legs, and the fringe. At this point we've done the other 2, and I've got to say they had a whole lot more parts, so this should be a cakewalk. Let's get him finished. And here is our final Frontiersman. So he wasn't too bad a build job for the most part. He was pretty simple compared to his compatriots. Just recommend keeping an eye on these little tab things that are hanging off all of their ponchos or serapes or whatever they're wearing, because that's kind of a easy thing to break there. So with him finished, that means a whole crew's done. Let's grab them and see how they look compared to some of the other Malifaux models we got laying around. So here we have the assembled crew, and obviously our friend Jonathon here is still going to be the biggest. My standouts probably are still going to be Cornelius himself here, although I gotta give this one Frontiersman a good run for the money. I really like this guy, and I'm looking forward to painting him. Hopefully I can do him justice. So grabbing some other Malifaux models as I knock everybody over. I was curious if we were going to see a little bit of scale creep like we did when Warhammer switched over to Age of Sigmar and things kind of slowly started to build themselves up. But it doesn't seem to be the case here. For the most part, everything still seems pretty close in size. So I grabbed a model from the other side just to show you as well. Those are totally compatible, especially if you want to start messing around with like Through the Breach or doing your own custom scenarios or something like that. So overall, they seem to fit in well. I'm not too worried about that. I've heard people whine and complain online about the static poses, but honestly, I think for what they are, they're really pretty solid and stable. And I mean, that's the one downside, I guess. If you want really dynamic sculpts, you're going to end up with models that are a lot easier to break. And it's not like they're just standing around, other than maybe Cornelius. And I mean, with a guy like that, he's supposed to look cool. So let me see if I have the Wild West Exodus model that matches up with him. Well, I have no idea what happened to the Marshall. I think I used him in the game, and he's MIA at the moment, so we'll just ignore that. Anyway, overall, really pleased. We'll see how they play in the game. I'm hoping to get some of these other new starters built up, and hopefully we will give them a try. So in the meantime, this is High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.